Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us, I'm really excited that I'm back in the studio here in the gas chamber. And I'm really excited by our guest, who is Joe Machi. You were the second ever guest I had on your welcome here at Gas Digital. You're back. You're a stand-up comedian, touring stand-up. You are probably my second favorite comedian after Neil Hamburger.
Oh, well, that's high praise. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because I mean, who else is there to compete with? Dave Smith, Lewis. I mean, this is like
These guys are hacks.
it's like, hey, look, I found a half-eaten piece of bread at this garbage dump. I guess I could eat it. But you and I used to be on Red Eye a lot together, and I was a fan of yours before I was a Red Eye regular. And what I loved about you is your delivery. And there's always a question people have if Joe Machi's really like that, and you are really like that. But my favorite thing that you used to do on Red Eye, and if people go back and look at the clips, I put them all on YouTube. You would, like, Tom Shalhoub would ask you a question, and instead of answering him, you would just stare at the screen and give the answer and just talk like this. And I would be sitting to your left, and I would get into frame and like get into your face, and you never broke.
I never understood why it is when you're doing those panel shows that you pretend you're not on TV. You're just people who happen to show up and you're having a conversation. You're like, oh, there's a oh, afterwards you're like, oh, that was televised? We were doing that? I don't know. It's great to be back. Thank you for having me. I have wet pants right now. It's raining. It's that miserable.
I think that sounds like a Biden endorsement.
I have wet pants.
Wet
I meant
myself.
to say 200,000.
So what I want to talk to you about, because you are so beloved, and I think a lot of people don't realize, you know, like when I give people advice who want to be an author, and they think, oh, I got to be Steinbeck or whatever, and they think to be a stand-up comedian, you have to be like Seinfeld or nothing. There's lots of comedians who aren't like a household name. You're not a household name, but you certainly are known and have a following and can make a decent living at it.
Yeah, there's been a cataclysmic shift, not just in stand-up comedy, but in art and mainstream media in general, where the people on TV aren't necessarily the most influential or even by a lot of measures successful. If you have 100,000 Instagram followers, you can make a living doing stand-up now, whereas before you need to be on some mediocre sitcom that even if I didn't watch it, I knew it existed.
Yeah.
And now people are like, I'm on that show. And I'm like, I've never heard of that show. I've never heard of that network.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's on cable. I'm like, oh,
Like, none of us heard of the network. What network is Impractical Jokers on?
Is it on True TV
True
still?
TV. We only know about it because Impractical Jokers.
Right. Because it used to be Court TV, and then they took a left turn at some meeting. I don't know.
Right, and then these guys show up, and now they make the network, and they're trying to spin them off unsuccessfully. And they're great, but that speaks to your point. They're not stand-up comedians. They come from an improv background.
Right.
And the show's based on that.
Right, and it's not just comedy. It's, I mean, pundits. I mean, you just mentioned Dave Smith. I bet a lot more people are reading his tweets than some of the people that are on.
Oh, for sure.
So.
It's very odd for me because like I had like more Twitter followers than like Jill Stein.
Right.
And it's like, this is the vice president's wife. You know, she's prominent. And now I'm blowing up her mentions by making fun of her crackhead son.
Yeah. And you have 100-some thousand followers.
Yeah, 130.
And some.
Don't pretend you don't know.
I check every day, and
you don't have a script.
Someday I'm gonna catch you. Some politician who was huge in 2000 that retired could start a Twitter account, and it would be a couple of years before they had the amount of followers that you had.
Because I think what people are looking for in social media, talking about you with like those bad sitcoms, they want something fresh. Like I turn on my TV, I watch my Big Bang Theory or whatever, and I know what the sitcom format's going to look like. When you're on the computer, it could be literally anything. So I want that innovation and that stuff that wouldn't fit into a TV context.
Yeah, a show that's made to to make everyone happy is probably the worst show you could have on the internet.
Yeah, can you imagine like a Big Bang Theory like YouTube show?
Yeah.
It would be hell on earth.
They're like, oh, are they going to date or aren't they? I've never seen that premise come up in a sitcom.
I also love the idea that after 8 seasons, this is the only attractive woman. She's not. She's like a TV 7.
Yeah, and none of their friends are like, you need to get out more.
Yeah, here's the other thing. Let's break down this show. I've never seen a full episode. I couldn't get through it. If the choice is that girl Penny or like a nerdy chick who's like a 5, go with the chick, the 5.
Yeah, why are you wasting the best years of your life
on this idiot who is like, even if you think she's gorgeous, like you're a scientist.
You have nothing in common.
Right. You have literally not. You have nothing in common. You don't respect her. She doesn't respect you. Whereas there's going to be some math or scientist chick, like an Allison Hannigan type, and you guys would be like ass beef best friends.
It would be so much more. Yeah.
And everyone would find it endearing.
Right. We got off the rails, didn't we?
There are no rails here.
There's no rails. That's good. That's good because those rails wouldn't be working. Subway joke. Sorry, that was inside. If you're in New York City,
yeah, that's a little inside baseball.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people in the world that are smart enough not to be here.
You're a modern day Dennis Miller with all these obscure references, like the Subway, Big Bang Theory, YouTube.
Modern day Seneca would be more apt.
Wait, so you used to have a podcast with
Sam Morril, Phil Hanley, and Liz Furiotti, who's a manager at the Comedy Cellar.
I don't know Liz. I've been on with Sam, who I think is amazing. Phil, I've been on, who I think is amazing. What happened there?
We actually started the podcast to help our touring, and our touring was going well enough that we couldn't all be in the same place anymore for our podcast. So it actually became a hindrance to do the thing we really want to do, which is stand up.
Yeah.
Which the past 6 months has been illegal in most of the country. If you'd have told me in February that stand up would be illegal in New York City, I'd be like, wow, things have taken a turn.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some people who wanted it to be illegal in February.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at.
Tell me what it's like if I'm a big like routine person. Like you're self-employed also. Like if you're self-employed, if you don't have that structure in your day, things get out of hand really, really fast. I think that's why a lot of self-employed people are probably stoners because their brains start, doing overtime. What's it like going from, you were touring every weekend, weren't you?
Pretty much.
And now it's like, sorry, asshole, you got to stay at home and not talk to anyone.
Yeah, you can't travel. You can't do your weekday spots at the city. We had a 10 o'clock curfew where I lived, and you felt weird going outside.
Yeah.
And that's not good. This was the best time to be an alcoholic because you had no responsibility and the liquor stores were still open. That's why early on I'm like, I'm going to try to learn something new. I started making Instagram videos. Oh. Learning to use iFilm badly, admittedly.
Yeah, because you have these very harsh edits.
Yes, they are.
You don't pause. Unlike Big Bang Theory, where they tell a joke and there's like a half hour for the audience to laugh. You tell the joke, you're like, wait a minute, that was funny, and you're on to the next one. I saw one once.
Well, that the problem with telling jokes to yourself is that there's no audience.
Yeah.
So the timing you get is a lot of feeding off the audience. So I thought that the quick cuts would substitute for the timing of the joke. You'd be like, oh, that's where the joke was because it's over now. And I always hate that there's so much time to either you got it or you didn't. That's why those sitcoms are so, even the ones I like, it's so slow.
Did you ever see there's footage of Big Bang Theory and Friends where they took out the laugh track?
Oh, that would be.
And it's just very odd because like someone will say something funny and they just sit around looking around.
Yeah. You got to stay in character, and without the laughing, you're just like,
yeah, what's my character doing?
Chandler's kind of a dick.
He is. So is Phoebe.
Phoebe?
She's a big bitch.
I don't remember that
There's
enough.
lots of times where she's undermining other people behind their backs, and she has these little nasty lines. She says her grandma's in hell, who's played by Norma, whatever her name is from Mrs. Roper, was playing her, Audra Lindley.
Oh, okay.
I want to know, but like, what did you do with all your spare time?
I started to write more. I tried to, I was already doing this thing. I saw this Arnold Schwarzenegger speech where he said if you do something for an hour a day, just do it for an hour a day. And I don't have the attention span to do a lot of things for an hour. But I was like, I'm going to play my guitar for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd started this before. And I was like, I'm going to up it. I'm going to read for longer a day. I'm going to play my guitar for longer a day. And I just started increasing that. But I feel like the problem was that so much of my self-esteem and self-worth was that I had this identity as being a comedian.
Yeah, a successful comedian, not just a comedian.
Yeah, I think if you're working as a comedian and I do this at 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, that's when you succeed, because some of the other stuff you can't control. And that was taken away, and I couldn't find a way to replace it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be kind of back on the road. I'm grateful for the few weekends I could do here and there.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. Want to tell you about Sheath underwear, which I wear every day. They're the most comfortable, softest boxer briefs I've ever worn. If you go to Sheath, SHEATH underwear.com and use code MALICE20, you get 20% off. This is what's amazing about Sheath. They have these dual pouches to keep your man parts separated, which keeps them from sticking together. If you're in hot environments, if you're jogging, working out, or just in the office, it's really, really fun. I have to tell you, it's also, to me, really kind of subversive. If you're sitting, having a meeting, and knowing your underwear is basically handling your junk, and you can sit there smiling and nodding. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use code MALICE20, you get 20% off. You'll get my pants. And there's lots of different kinds. There's the basic stuff for you guys, because you're also basic. They've got I've got 4 different kinds of camo from them. They've got this cool like Greek design. Anyway, you'll see. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code MALICE20, you will get 20% off, and you and your boys will be telling me you're welcome. They also have a woman's line, but women don't listen to the show. And if you are a woman, I do not want to hear from you on this show. Otherwise, I might want to hear from you. Let's get back to the show. What's it like when you're so? To me, and I'm sure you'd agree, I know a lot of people who are stand-up comedians, not good. There's you, but there's the third tier, like Lewis, as I mentioned earlier, just awful. It's very much a dance or a conversation with the audience, right? Mm-hmm. Like you throw out energy, they give it back in waves of laughter, and it really kind of builds. It's almost, there's a kind of religious aspect to it if you want to get really like kind of corny about it. What's it like when you are doing a performance and it's like half empty by law? First of all, that's got to be even though it's half empty because they're not allowed, psychologically, you've gone from a full room of people laughing to half a room where it's going to feel like a quarter of the laughter. That's got to do a number on any comedian.
Yeah, it's like, imagine the laugh track is turned down a great bit. And there was this study in the 60s where they took all these patterns and they had actors who knew they were doing the study, and they're like, okay, what was the pattern? And most of the people got it right. And then they told the actors to disagree with the people. And then I can't remember what it was, like 60%
changed their minds. And
stand-up comedy is a lot of that. It's a lot of, people are enjoying this, so it must be good. Or I was at a show at the Comedy Cellar, and Rich Voss was about to go on.
He's great.
So funny. And 2 other comedians, I think it was Keith Robinson and Bobby Kelly. I'm not 100% on that. They decided that they were going to just say "aw" after all of his jokes.
That's horrible.
And these 2 guys, like the comedian before him, did a lot of sex jokes, and he did a sex joke, and they go "aw," and halfway through the set, a lot of the crowd was just going "aw." It took over. These 2 guys were able to like completely sway this audience. It was such a great practical joke.
Well, Voss is a beast on the mic. There's no question. He's one of the great stand-ups of our time. He's been around for a very long time. I'm sure he'd never seen that before, though. So what was his reaction?
He was so good off the cuff, and he had fun with it.
Okay, yeah, because he knew what was going on.
I think he figured it out.
Yeah, okay. I have one of his wife's, Bonnie's, jokes in my book, The New Right, because I have a whole chapter about dark humor. And she had this great joke at the roast of... I forget who she was roasting. Jim Norton, I think it was. And she goes, your radio show is so unlistenable. I'd rather hear my daughter drowning. And I put in the book, I go, who are you to tell her that this is inappropriate? Either as a mother or as a professional comedian. You're not in a position to say that's not funny. It's her. She's first of all, she's got the stature, and you're telling me she doesn't love her kid. What are you talking? But when you put in those, it's such a good joke.
Yeah, and I would have to imagine if you took that sentence and told to people, a lot of people like, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
That's wrong. If you took the whole existence of Bonnie and said, well, she's probably given up a lot of stand-up comedy
Yeah.
to even have kids.
Yes, of course.
And she's she's a great writer. She's one of those people that comedians watch, and we laugh even when the audience isn't laughing, because I've seen audiences turn on not necessarily Bonnie as much. I've seen it happen, but not to the. I've seen Anthony Jeselnik bomb.
Really?
And just stay right in the pocket, stay in character, because people, I don't know if it's just the way the world is now. People want to be like, oh, you shouldn't. No, I came here not to say, oh, maybe this person's making a joke at the comedy show. I came here to judge the ethics of it.
Let me ask you this. There's very rare when I have a tweet that I will not send out. And I had one, and this is the one I refrained, and I'm going to reveal it to the audience right now. This is my Ari Shaffir impression. I was going to tweet out, look, we're all agreed that Kobe Bryant is raping Ruth Bader Ginsburg right now. But does that mean she's in heaven, or does that mean she's in hell?
It's going to get some pushback. You're going to get some pushback.
But no one's answering my question.
Oh, that's a great point.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I would have to think about it a little more. I'm going to totally sidestep the issue. I am a coward. I'm a little gun shy because I did a joke. The premise, it's not done. I always try some new. And last week I was working in Connecticut. I tried a joke that the premise was I go on social media and I forgive people that other people are judging.
Okay.
And nothing makes people angrier on the internet than forgiving people. They're like, no. Good people are judging and not forgiving here.
Yeah.
And then I said, take Kobe Bryant, for example. And I was saying that the point of the joke was that judging is wrong. And I was just using him as an example of people judging, and they just heard the name Kobe Bryant, and they're like, you shouldn't be joking about him. And I wasn't joking about him specifically. It's just that you're talking, you've had a couple of drinks, it's a big room, and then you start hearing bits and pieces, and then you're at the point now where I'm defending a joke I didn't even make.
Let's talk about this, because this happened over the weekend. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but now it's perfect segue. Ron Paul, who I adore, who everyone adores, had a stroke live during a live stream. And I immediately had the tweet that said, Ron Paul is doing a great Joe Biden impression right now. Ron Paul is the object of the joke. He's not the subject of the joke. The subject of the joke is Joe Biden. It's a Joe Biden joke. But not everyone, like a lot of people were flipping out. They're being like, oh my God, you're making fun of Ron Paul. I'm not making fun of Ron Paul. I'm making fun of Joe Biden. And I wasn't going to defend myself because this is something that is very well known. Like Archie Bunker was the punchline.
Right.
Even though he was very lovable, you were supposed to be laughing at him and his ignorance.
Right.
And people do not understand some of them. It's like some kind of blindness that if you are using joke in right hand, Kobe Bryant in your left hand as an ingredient in your joke, therefore you're making fun of Kobe Bryant.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's very little critical thinking that goes on in internet outrage. And do you even try to argue? Are people like, that's when the whole Russian hacking, the Russian collusion story came out, and it was like, oh, they made a couple of Facebook posts. I'm like, yeah, well, no one changes their mind on Facebook
or dark
posts.
web ads.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, whenever someone's posted, if you believe this, unfollow me.
Right.
I've never even finished the sentence.
Right.
I just unfollow them.
Yeah, of course.
Because I just don't want to, I don't want to be talked to like that. I don't want to have my people who are supposedly my friends just talking down to everyone. If I disagreed with you about something, I wouldn't start off being like, you're a dick unless.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what do you think about that? And how can maybe I change your mind with reason? And then maybe a couple sentences in, as those things often get more passionate, then you start saying the mean things to people. And that's kind of a character flaw that I have too, and I admit it. But like, it's like they start out at admonishing people.
It's also weird. They feel this need to publicly denounce, like they would like ask friends of mine, "Oh, you're going to put up with this?" And it's like, look, if you did something that I found offensive, which would be more effective at changing your mind? Tweeting at you at Joe Machi, "You're an ass. This is unacceptable. Delete this," or texting you and be like, "Hey, consider this. This is kind of messed up," and you probably didn't even realize it. You'd look at that text because it's personal and be like, "Oh man, maybe there's a point." But if I'm backing you against the wall on Twitter publicly, you have to dig in your heels to some extent, or else you're just to save face.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's like, hey, you haven't tweeted about this yet.
Right.
It's even gotten to the point where it's not that you did tweet something I disagree with. You haven't tweeted something I agree with.
That's how the guy who founded CrossFit got fired. Did you know about this?
No.
The guy who founded CrossFit or was CEO, a major position in CrossFit, he wasn't going to take part of Black Lives Matter. He says, like, this is white people nonsense. And they fired him for this.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, not because he was against it, not because he's racist, or he's just like, everyone else is participating in this. What does this have to do with us? Like, we're a fitness lifestyle. And they're like, oh, well, you clearly want cops to kill. That's all I'm hearing is, I'm glad cops kill black people. So you're fired.
It's very easy to have your position remade.
Yes.
Into something else. That's why it's like every joke I tell, I'm like, oh, how could this be taken out of context? It's just, there's a famous Jordan Peterson interview where the person interviewing keeps saying, "So you're saying," and it's something totally.
Kathy Newman, she's a meme.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, we should all be lobsters.
We should. It's like, no, that's not at all right. What I said.
One of my favorite jokes of yours is you have this whole segment about Hitler. And about how I feel stupid telling someone their own joke, but like that whole bit about how Hitler, and it's funny when, to me, like the acme of humor is when someone tells a joke that we've all realized subconsciously have never verbalized, and it's like, I've known this for 40 years, and until he said it, I didn't put two and two together. But you had that whole bit about how Hitler convinced his entire nation that we all need to be blonde and blue-eyed while having brown hair.
Yeah, it's so crazy that even when you see the photos of him as a kid, it wasn't like he was one of those people who started out blonde and then it got darker. It was dark the entire time, and someone was like, maybe you should change it to blonde and brown hair. Just do that. Can we do that? He's like, no, there's one hair color.
I had you do this last time you were on the show, and I think about it all the time still, like 2 years later. I can't even handle this bit. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's just so funny. I've never done this. I've never lost character this much. When you were talking about going back in time and killing baby Hitler.
And killing baby Hitler, like, wouldn't people there be like, what'd you do that for? And you're like, no, it's okay. I'm from the future. This guy deserved that. But it's funny when I started telling that joke, it was 7 or 8 years ago, and then it got asked. It was in the presidential debates. I was telling the joke, and then someone asked Jeb Bush, would he go back in time and kill? And then people were tweeting me. They're like, they stole your joke. And I was like, oh man, because people have been saying that forever. I can't claim credit for that.
But I also, you're like, well, if I'm there, there's a lot of
yeah. I'm just gonna let Goebbels get off the hook. It seems like a waste of a trip.
No, you don't understand this baby. He's got some really bad plans.
I had a woman come up to me in Cleveland saying you shouldn't make any jokes about that. And I'm like, I appreciate your point of view, because she didn't interrupt the show.
Right.
So I'm only mad when you interrupt, because if you don't laugh, that hurts.
Sure.
That's how you hurt me. If you leave, that's how it hurts. She was very polite and said, you should, she said her opinion in a reasonable manner. And I was like, well, I appreciate the difference of opinion, but it's a joke about a time machine. And those don't even exist.
It'll be funny in the future.
Yeah, maybe if it's not a real thing.
I was on the Brighton Beach boardwalk once with my friend Steph, and there's this older black woman. She was like let's say 60, and she was standing there, just standing, not moving, like this, for a good 2 minutes as we walked past her. And I'm like, Steph, she's unstuck in time. She's like, what year is this? Obama's president? What am I? Okay. Hey guys, Michael Malice here. Want to tell you about our new sponsor, IPVanish. It's an important tool to help protect your privacy online. What you do online isn't my business. It's nobody else's business. You don't want cyber criminals stealing your data, marketers to track what you're buying. You need IPVanish. What is it? It's a VPN, virtual private network, that creates a private connection from your computer to the internet, which protects your identity and encrypts your data. Here's what happens. Your real IP address disappears. You can't be tracked online. You get fast, unrestricted internet. And it's the only VPN with 24/7 customer support. If you use ipvanish.com/malice, plans start at just $325 a month. That's nothing. 75% off the regular price if you go to ipvanish.com/malice. Those of you who bootleg stuff, who download things, looking at things you shouldn't be looking at, IPVanish virtual private networks are the thing that you might want to use. And they have more than 1,500 servers in 70 countries, so you're never going to get stuck with a slow site or a video that doesn't load. Speaking of slow, let's get back to this horrible conversation. Is it the kind of thing where now when you do stand up, everything has to be about COVID?
That's a tough one because there's a lot of COVID premises that are almost dad jokes at this point. Like every day seems the same. Or how many people have said that? I think people do want to hear jokes about what's going on in the world, and you feel a little bit like a dinosaur if you're not addressing the world since February.
Right.
So I do have some in my act. It's tough. I have a bit where it's pretty edgy. It's about the premise is basically they said 2 million are going to die regardless. And then like, we're going to lock down for 2 weeks. And I'm like, wow, 2 million people, 2 weeks. Okay, that's 1 million per week. And then 6 months later, I looked at how many people have died, and it's 200,000. And part of me is like so grateful that it wasn't worse. And another part of me is like, hey, we canceled a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
We made this big bargain that this was this horrible thing. And thank God it wasn't as horrible as they initially thought. But at the same time, it's like flatten the curve was kind of a huge lie.
Yeah.
It persists.
I thought that's not where I thought you were going to go. I thought you were going to go, and they said 2 million dead regardless, and it's been 200,000. They're going to start rounding us up. We got to get those numbers.
Yeah. People are going to be like, hey, I lost my diner, and I'm looking for someone to blame. And pretty soon they're not going to be counting the deaths. They're going to be counting the shortfall. And I realize that that's a dark premise, but I'm not. Again, it's almost like your Joe Biden, Ron Paul joke. It's like the butt of the joke is they really screwed up the accounting for the estimates for what this was going to be. And I think that's the joke.
Yes.
But I'm using a very tough situation to make that point. But really, what other option is if I'm talking about that subject? It's pretty tough.
Do you how much is stand up coming back? It must be different state by state.
I believe Cuomo put in the I'm reticent to call them laws because I don't remember laws being by fiat by the executive branch. But
Edicts.
Yeah, these edicts said like no stand-up comedy and no music unless it's incidental. So if people paid to go see a music show in New York City, like it can be playing, but it can't be the reason you paid.
Okay.
Because that will spread the disease more if they bought a ticket for music. And stand-up in a lot of places has been legal since June. I mean, I did Kansas City and Oklahoma City reduced capacity.
So you're like super spreader Mackey.
I even went like I understand you're saying that in jest.
Yes.
But I took that to heart, so I was very careful. I got tested each time I came home from a hot spot because I was, pardon me, this disease isn't as bad as they said it was, but at the same time, it's still, I think the CDC said it was 95% of people over 70. It's around, I think 95.5 or 6 said the people over 70 are going to survive. But at the same time, 5% are gonna die, and that's a lot of people.
That's Darwin.
Yeah, I'll try to. I can wear a mask. I can get a test.
Yeah. Wait, did that go up your nose?
They could actually also do it in your throat.
Oh.
And I have kind of small sinuses. I don't want things going up there.
Yeah, of course.
At least things are like you're meant to have things going down your throat.
Yeah.
Where your sinuses, nothing's supposed to go. I think it would be very irritating, so I opted for the throat option.
Okay.
But none of that's funny at all.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Oh, unless it's a kid with leukemia next to you. Then it's kind of funny. What are you going to wish for, kid? A good doctor? Or do you want to meet Beyonce?
I would feel if I was getting a test with a kid with leukemia, here's where my mind goes. I'm like, it would be safer for everyone if I didn't get this test. Because this person might have a compromised immune system. Because that's where my head goes, where it's like a lot of these policies are paradoxical.
Yes, I agree.
In a sense where it's like they're taking away liquor licenses because they're out past 11. Yet I get on the subway, and every time I've been on it, someone's not wearing a mask in an enclosed space with a lot of people coming and going, interacting, breathing the same air, and that's run by the city. So they're like, well, we're not gonna fine ourselves for not doing a damn thing about this thing. But so New York can't do comedy. You can ride the subway, but a lot of places. I mean, I was in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. 50% capacity. They've been open since June, I believe.
But 50%, that's a big room, isn't it?
It's a big room.
Yeah.
But you can still have a pretty good show, even if they're spaced out. If they're a good crowd.
50% of a big room is a decent crowd.
It's a decent crowd, yeah. If you get a decent sized room and there's 40 people laughing at a joke, even if that room holds 200, that's still going to sound pretty good.
Yeah.
It's the problem you have is, especially early on in your set, if they're not laughing and 40%, like 20% of a 200-seat room would have laughed, then you're really digging yourself a hole because now people are like, should have gone to the country cover band next door. That's when you start to lose people.
What's it like being an established comedian and like kids who are coming up and so on and so forth? Are they friendly? Or do they want to get to know you? Are they trying to exploit your connections? Like, what's that sociology like of stand-up comedy?
I don't think I'm big enough for people to if they're trying to exploit me, they're wasting their time because I'm still at the point where a lot of the weekends I get on the road are because a bigger comedian dropped out. And
but you've opened for
Louis and Dave
Louis C.K.
Yeah,
come on, you're his opener. Dave Attell is a major heavyweight. Mm-hmm. You've had a pilot shot. Right?
I've never had a pilot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did.
That's okay. I've had a Comedy Central half hour.
That's
I've done
what I
a lot
meant.
of TV.
Yeah. You've been on TV a lot, so I think that is a certain level of stature that no one could take away from you.
That's true, and people do
and you're
want
verified.
Yeah, people do want something, but usually it's something small, like can I do a guest spot on your road weekend, or will you do my podcast? I've even become reticent to do podcasts of people I don't know because
same here.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Mark Normand, did a podcast. You might know.
I know
Mark.
his name.
Funny comedian. He did a podcast, and then they cut it up into clips and put them on YouTube. And one of the headlines was "Mark Normand destroys cancel culture." I'm paraphrasing. It was something like that. And I watched the clip, and I'm like, "Oh man, they're using this as clickbait. They're using Mark's success to lie to people to get clicks."
Well, you can't really even blame him. It's not like they're saying he's saying something he's not. Like Mark Normand is a big racist.
No,
that's a headline that it would work as a headline.
It would. Yeah. Also, like, there's a lot of people who, if you criticize cancel culture, that's a cancelable offense, even acknowledging the existence of it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're right in the sense that, well, the New York Times uses clickbait.
Right.
So how can I fault these young kids trying to get a start in stand-up? But the problem with clickbait and the problem with social climbing is that anyone can do it.
Sure.
So it has a shelf life.
Yeah.
So, BuzzFeed did a lot of clickbait. And now they're kind of a money pit because other people are like, oh, I can get those clicks too.
I could do listicles.
Yeah.
Number 7 will. You think number 7 will surprise you? Well, number 5 of our list will surprise you even more.
Or like I always see shocking Republican celebrities or like all these crazy stupid lists that really are just a scam to make you click through ads. Yeah. And
it's like the mom on Home Improvement is pro-life. This changes everything. Patricia Heaton, I think her name is.
Oh, she's from Everybody Loves Raymond. I was gonna say I don't even.
No, one of them is.
She's the mom from Everyone Loves.
Who's the one on? It's the same character.
Is it? I don't know.
Don't you think it's literally the same character? I've never seen either show, but Home Improvement, the mom, and Everybody Loves Raymond, the mom, I feel like it's the same exact personality type.
So many of those.
And they're just there to be like the foil toward the dude.
So many of those wives are just they're supposed to be like,
Claire on Modern Family is another one. It's the same character.
You're not supposed to have fun, and the husband's kind of a goof off, idiot trying to get away with it,
right?
And always gets
unsuccessfully,
caught.
Yeah. She's smarter than him.
It's almost it's a plot device almost as used as much as the will they or won't they get together.
Yeah.
Come on, Jim and Pam. It's been 2 seasons.
Let's do it.
Let's see if this.
You know he's gonna rape her, just like Kobe and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They'll change it to the orifice.
I'm not familiar with the reference.
An orifice?
Oh, is it an office take? Because it's the similar O and E.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Am I too smart for the room?
No,
Am I gonna walk the room?
I'm so ignorant on pop culture that when you said
Jim and Pam's The Office. You didn't know this?
I'm sorry?
You didn't know Jim and Pam were The Office?
No, I did know they were The Office, and I love that sitcom. I thought there might be a show called The Orifice that I just didn't know about.
I meant because of sexually.
Oh, okay. Yep. You're talking about human
holes.
But okay, that's wow. We've really.
When a man loves a woman very much, like Kobe Bryant and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he holds her down and puts his hand over her mouth so she can't make legal judgments in hell or heaven.
Right. And I'm feeling awkward right now, and that's a perfectly acceptable reaction.
That's your default setting.
That's my default setting. You're right. I get better. Like the more I do something, I get more comfortable and less awkward. And then people are like, "Oh, you were faking." I'm like, "No. This is the 30th podcast I've done this week."
Yeah, it's gonna get to you.
Yeah. But yeah, every sitcom wife is in so many sitcoms. That's why like King of Queens was kind of cool. That Kevin James's wife, Leah Remini, she kind of was doing the same thing, except about different.
Oh, she was like the dumb one.
No, she was trying to get away with stuff.
Oh,
and he was trying to get away with stuff. And the plot was that they were just doing it at different times.
Oh,
and sometimes they were doing it at the same time.
That actually is clever.
Yeah. So it's like you do find ways to be creative within that framework. Like, I mean, The Office was so great, and they were still able to make a sitcom in the age of the internet.
Yeah. This even goes back to Small Wonder. Do you remember this?
Yes, that was the robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the dad was a kind of a goof off, even though he invented a human being, and the mom's just kind of a scold.
Yeah, it's. I guess maybe those family shows, both parents were serious when they were about the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much every sitcom has the love interest that are they or aren't they going to get together, and then if it's a family, the husband's a goof off, the wife's an idiot.
A scold.
A scold, yeah.
Like comedians have a lot of respect for, but that the general public doesn't know. Do you know what I mean? Like there's comedians.
I would say Dave Smith could be one of those people.
Really?
I think he's a lot of times he's too smart for the room. He's also got a point of view that may not be popular.
Okay.
But he's such a good writer that like a lot of times this is something a comic told me when I was first starting, and it just gets truer and truer. There's a difference between people laugh at what's funny. Like a fart joke or a sex joke will get a huge laugh.
Or if you just say the expression "big pink dildo," they're in hysterics.
Yeah,
but that's just a cue.
But like a lot of the jokes that say, like a Dave Chappelle talks about, won't get the biggest laugh, but they're going to be the ones like, "Oh, that's funny," and they're going to tell their friend. They're going to be like, "You got to buy this album." And the problem with that is when you do clubs, you can get buried by the feature act that goes before you. But they're doing all sex jokes or black people do this, white people do this, stereotype jokes, and they can bury you. And some audience members are going to be like, well, that guy should have been the headliner. That guy was funnier. But if you're grading on degree of difficulty and originality, that like I would think like a Bonnie McFarlane would be far ahead of a comedian that makes a lot of sex jokes or that's all they do, or because she's a great writer. It's really funny. You have to think a little bit more.
Yeah.
If you've had a bunch of drinks, you might not get it as well. You might be like, hey, I only heard part of that, but I'm going to judge her publicly.
So who are the big cerebral comedians out there? Who are like the Stephen Wrights that are around right now?
I don't know if there's a Stephen Wright, but there's I almost feel like I'm so out of the game.
Is that right?
That like I have to think about it for a second.
So it's not the kind of thing where everyone's watching each other's acts, it's much more of a solo kind of career nowadays?
I wanted it to be that way because I find the more comedians I watch, there's that risk of the idea seeping into your head, and then
I stole his joke by mistake.
Yeah, you put it out years later thinking that you thought of it, not remembering, and that's another thing where someone accused me of stealing a joke that his friend did at an open mic that I put on the internet 4 years earlier.
Right.
That's just the way people don't want to do it's so easy to accuse without any culpability.
Right.
And that's why it's like a lot of these people will say this comedian's a joke thief, and they'll be like, here's the side by side. And I'm like, you're taking all the things this person said versus all the things all people have said ever. And there's 10 minutes of overlap. And that means they stole it. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I believe that.
What about Carlos Mencia, though?
There's more damning evidence, and there's eyewitness accounts from people saying like, oh, and I'm not speaking of him because I don't know enough about it to say, but in general, if there's eyewitness accounts, there's people who steal jokes.
That was really kind of intense when Rogan got on stage and called him out to his face. That is crazy. That does not happen.
And Rogan suffered for that.
Did he?
I think he lost his agency. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, I did not know that.
I believe he lost his agent, and then he wasn't allowed to work at the Comedy Store for a while. Wow. After that, I might be wrong. I would feel really bad. I'm just not 1,000%.
Let's look it up.
That story was a while ago, so my memory may fail me. But that's what happens a lot. If the risk is in
the blowback. People don't like conflict.
Well, also, I believe Carlos Mencia was a pretty big act at that time.
Yeah. So
if you're trying to kill the golden goose, they're gonna take the goose's side, whether or not the goose was
this was
stealing.
I don't have any hate for that dude. He completely destroyed another comic's career. Do you think he destroyed his career? I mean, it didn't help his career, that's for sure.
Rogan's no.
I mean, Mencia.
Oh, Mencia. No, I don't. I think Rogan hurt his career eventually because it's in stand-up. Once you lose,
let me interrupt you because I'm getting the actual receipts. George Lopez called him out for stealing 13 minutes of material. That's not one joke.
And one comedian. That's pretty hard to.
Yeah, from one guy.
Right.
And Ari Shaffir called him out also. Wow, this was in 2007.
It was a long time ago.
That's a long time. We were so young then. Impact. He got the Comedy Club banned Rogan for 2 years.
Wow.
For releasing footage, and his agents ended up dropping him.
Wow. Yeah.
So kudos to Joe.
Yeah, that was a gutsy move.
But but we had social media back then. I'm surprised he didn't do it on social media and he did it face to face.
Yeah,
that is gutsy.
It is, and the reason social media didn't start bad, it gets corrupted.
Yeah,
eventually. Because I remember Facebook used to be, oh, your friend got married, and here's pictures of your vacation, and Instagram was like that until a year ago, and then it really went down the rabbit hole of being all in on politics.
Yeah.
And I didn't sign up for it for that.
Right.
So
I want to see puppy pictures.
Yeah.
And little stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been looking at bears breaking in videos. Bears breaking in videos, the unsung heroes of the internet, and tree cutting, people trying to cut down tree fails.
Okay.
Like if
a lot of those are fake.
Really?
Yeah, when they break the truck.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Some of those are faked, yes.
There was one I thought was fake where there was a car. It was like a Geostorm parked in the middle of the woods. I'm like, who would drive a Geostorm?
Yes.
And then they're filming it. It's in the shot where the tree being cut down is not in the shot that nearly as much as the Geostorm. But a lot of them seemed like, this is an idiot. And some of the spills are like, yeah, I feel bad that I watched that because it looked pretty bad.
I've been watching dogs protecting babies.
Oh, those are cute too. Yeah. Like where the parent pretends they're trying to.
Or not even, like, if there's like a German Shepherd and a Husky, and the German Shepherd just guards the baby from the Husky, and the Husky's like, we've been friends our entire life. He's like, you're not coming near this kid. I
Yeah.
don't trust you. You're a wolf. They think you're a dog. I know.
I'm not a wolf. You're a wolf.
Yeah, exactly. I love how dogs don't trust each other. Should we be listening to them?
No, dogs are so, and the false sense of confidence that like dogs will chase off bears, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that is bad for his ego. That dog's gonna be insufferable for the rest of the day.
But he did it.
He did it? Yeah. I was scared. The dog wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I wish I had a dog. They're so cool.
Yeah, me too.
Have you ever had dogs?
When we were young, we had a dog, and then I haven't had one since.
What kind of dog was it?
It was a French. It was some sort of poodle, maybe a cockapoodle, because it was
Okay.
too small to be a. The French poodles, they can get pretty big.
Yeah, yeah.
And my brother has a dog that I love, but like I've lived alone in this, when I'm traveling or working, I just didn't
course.
feel it was right. And also, like, I don't know how great the quality of life is for dogs. Like, I've seen someone has a Burmese mountain dog, and I hope they have a big apartment because those dogs are supposed to walk up the Himalayas. And it's like, if you're living in an apartment in New York
Fourth floor
City,
walk up. Come on, it's the
it's just
same.
like, it's like I can walk over 2 rooms down.
Yeah.
If it's a big apartment, like it just seems like not what they were. Even the biggest sellout dogs that are so far removed from wolves that wolves are just like have some self-respect.
Look, the Frenchies.
Yeah, they're like this isn't right.
My friend had a Frenchie, Bianca. She was very, very cute and very, very dumb. But it's like, how are you a real thing?
Yeah.
Like, you look like some kind of sausage with a bowling ball on a head.
A stuffed animal come to life.
Yeah.
That is actually what you would think it would act like if it were real.
And what's really funny is those dogs with the flat muzzles, they've got really jacked teeth, which are really kind of funny to look at because they're just all like, it's like a tin can. It's really horrible.
I think about that a lot. Like, what if those dogs got loose? How would they do in the wild with those flat?
Oh, they're done.
You
Like
think so?
my friend, we talk about her friendship. We used to talk about it all the time. It's like, can you just imagine her in the woods? She'd be like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
What do I do?
I've got this person mouth. And I'm a wolf. And I've got this... like dachshunds? They're
done.
Yeah, I mean...
The weasels are going to eat them.
If this disease was like the disease in The Stand, the super flu that kills like 99.9% of the people, dogs would be like, I'm not evolved for this.
There, another fun video is there's this cat which waited outside a supermarket and would lead people to the cat food, and they would buy it for her.
Oh, that is
And it would
hilarious.
like hit it with the paw, which one it wanted.
That's pretty cool.
When they train people, it's really, really cute.
That is cute, yeah. Did you ever see that guy who trained his dog to drive the golf cart? This is like so
No,
far.
was it it must have been a border collie or like Australian Shepherd or something.
I can't remember. Border collies are super smart.
Yeah.
But oh man, that was so cool. If you can get a dog to drive, man,
Wow. How would it even have the proportions?
I don't know. Maybe because golf carts only, they just have really the steering wheel and the pedal.
But the legs are going to be on the seat, or is it standing?
They must have modified it.
Yeah, or he could be standing somehow, breaking his hips for this poor dude.
I hope it wasn't fake. I hope I'm not one of those guys that like comedian gets duped by dog driving.
Joe Machi gets destroyed by facts and logic. That's going to be our clip for the week.
Taking Joe Machi takedown. That's another thing that's happened. It's like if you say one incorrect thing on a podcast, the whole thing can be labeled fake.
I just did a 4-hour podcast with Lex Fridman, which is going to drop this week, which I'm really, really excited about. But yeah, in 4 hours, like with Rogan. The thing with Rogan, when you do that show, it's very intimate. You forget the size of the audience.
Right.
And you're just broing out. And then you leave, and I swear, this happened to me every single time I've done it. You leave, and you're like, what the fuck did I just say? Because you start doing the rewind.
Yes.
And you're like, what's the one sentence that's going to be taken out of context?
And I'm an anxious person, as you well know. And like, even when I was telling the joke, doing just the premise of the joke about the 2 million and how the point of the joke is that they got the numbers way wrong.
Yeah.
I'm still worried that someone's going to be like, you shouldn't even be mentioning that.
Yeah, old people are dying, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. This is still a thing. How could you be so glib about it?
So like, you're taking the thing that I didn't make a joke about and making that what I made the joke, which isn't true. But that's what you have to worry about just because it used to, I think the problem is you shouldn't be able to talk to everybody. Like, if I wanted to talk to Tom Cruise, like, 12 years ago, that would have been absurd. I can't.
You still can't talk to Tom Cruise. Joe
Yeah.
Machi.
Well, say a particular actor.
Okay.
Now
Tom
there's
Cruise.
a possibility I could tweet.
Oh yeah.
And then it would get retweeted enough that maybe they would see it and respond.
I don't even know who Kristen Chenoweth is really, but I had a dream with her, and I tweeted about it, and she replied, and I'm like, okay, we're kind of breaking the veil here, where my dreams are becoming real.
Right. That's kind of what social media
Yeah.
is, where the fake world becomes real if enough. It's like Peter Pan. You just have to believe.
One of the questions I've been getting a lot from my audience, and I'm very curious to your perspective, they're asking, how bad is New York? Are you over it? Are all your friends moving? What's your perspective on that?
I came to New York not liking New York. I'm from a pretty rural area. At best, it could be described as a big town surrounded by a rural area.
In Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and I didn't love New York before the pandemic.
What didn't you love about it?
It's too crowded. People shouldn't be stacked on top of
Yeah.
each other. There's just constant strife, little things that you can do in the suburbs or
Yeah.
in the country, like go to the supermarket, become almost like you're just getting elbowed and you're like, I gotta get this thing and I gotta get to the register because that's going to be another 10 minutes. Just little things are just so much more difficult. And then you had to balance that with the fact that you could go see a Broadway play or you could eat at a great different restaurant
Yeah.
every night. And then, oh, look, there's that famous person that I respect. And this was the best stand-up comedy in the world, in my opinion, right down at the Comedy Cellar. And now all that stuff is gone. And not only that, it's just like there's a feeling of lawlessness.
Yeah.
Especially for things that like weren't the worst things in the world. Like I was walking into the subway and kids were doing wheelies, like probably teenagers were doing
Sure.
wheelies on the bikes, almost hitting people. And I feel like people are just like,
What are you going to do?
yeah, it's like no one, there's just been even if like, I know the crime statistics have gone up, especially the violent crimes, and I suspect some of the other crime statistics haven't risen as sharply because they're not even investigating or calling the cops
Yeah.
anymore. It's like if someone
the point?
vandalizes something,
Well, there's nothing we do.
yeah, or someone swipes a candy bar, you're
Right.
gonna buy. So I don't know, but yeah, everything seems so arbitrary. It seems more lawless. And I remember in May there was an article that said 400,000 people or so had already left in the Post.
Holy crap.
And that was in May. And
Yeah.
I wonder how many people have left now, because I've talked to people who are like, yeah, I'm leaving, or this employee already moved
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
the Midwest. Or I wonder how many people are going to be like, I'm going to think a good long time before I decide to just jump back in to moving into New York. Because maybe if I want the city life and I'm moving back to Missouri, maybe I could go to St. Louis. Maybe I could go to Kansas City, Missouri, or, there's a lot of other places to get a lot of these things where, I mean, New York is just, I guess there has been some benefits. The air smells better. There's a little less traffic, although that's started to pick up again. The rents have dropped. And I think what will probably end up happening is that New York will get cheap again, and then people will invest in it again. But that might take a while.
Yeah, yeah.
But I saw someone say it's like, it's not that bad. Someone posted a video in the West Village during the day. It's not, the people are saying New York's bad. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of not a good sample size.
What I am missing is the international tourists.
That's a huge,
Because that
huge
really
point.
added to the color of the city and the vibe of the city.
Yeah. The international tourists, even the people from the California that would come here, it seems to be non-existent.
Yeah. We
And-
still can't, I can't go to Canada right now if I wanted to. Canada.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
My friend is going with his family to Italy. He invited me along, and then he's like, "Oh, you can't go." I'm like, "What? I didn't know this." He's like, "No, your passport doesn't work anywhere on Earth now."
So I don't know how people could say it's the same.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I guess the argument is really between it's not as bad as people say it is.
Right.
Or it is as bad as people saying it is.
I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. And I think it's definitely improving quickly. But I think the problem is when we have a mayor who's a Sandinista, who seems to revel in closing things down and arbitrary power. That's when it's very dangerous.
That's a great point, and that's a point I've been making to people where it's like, New York didn't start getting bad in February or in March. It started getting bad a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the cause of it is. And homelessness is a problem that the most liberal solutions and the most conservative solutions, I can hear them both and be like, yeah, that's some good ideas, or you make some good points. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what's causing it to explode. But like, I remember in the coldest winter day, I would go into the subway and there would be maybe 4 homeless people. Now, before the lockdown, it was every day.
Yeah.
It had exploded that much where it's just like, wow, this is...
And they all have a lot of stuff with them. Mm-hmm. And they set up little camps.
Yeah, and
Refugees welcome.
It's not a jobs issue.
Yeah.
Or a rent issue. This is a lot of the people that are the worst off, it's a mental health or a drug issue, and it's just tragic. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do about it. But I just know it's much, much worse.
Well, thanks for making us laugh, Joe Machi.
Oh, boy. What a depressing
Here's what we're gonna
podcast
do.
this has been. Can I do some plugs?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go... I do want you to do your plugs. We're going to go out. We're going to kill some babies who are potential genocidal dictators or non-genocidal dictators.
In the past, after we have proof.
It is the past. This is the past of 2100. And we have evidence because, they're born with evil in their heart. And we'll be like, no, you don't understand. And this is going to be his propaganda minister. And this is going to be the doctor at the camp.
Yeah.
And then everyone clapped.
And we're like, oh, that's why. Yeah.
So what are your plugs?
I got, when does this come out?
We're live right now.
We're live right now.
This is going to be live on gasdigital.com immediately. And then on YouTube and iTunes Wednesday at midnight.
Okay, awesome, great. I am doing 2 shows outdoors in Connecticut, October 9th and 10th. One's at Lenny's by the Bay, and the other is at Pream Vineyards.
What kind of turnouts do you get to those things?
These are going to be my first ones.
Oh, wow.
I've avoided those like the plague.
Yeah, of course. I like that.
Thank you. I was like, I shouldn't have said that.
Yes, you should have. That was good.
And I've avoided them because they're doing the shows outside in the park, and I'm like, anybody can walk by. There's no investment.
Yeah.
People can
it's
film
free?
you and take it. Yeah, you can't charge to. Maybe they're charging, but like anybody can walk.
Okay, yeah.
Walk by, and just that's not why do something?
Velvet rope people.
Yeah, it's like if you're like, hey Van Gogh, we can't get any canvas or oil, but here's a pencil and a notebook. It's like maybe he would do some stuff for himself to keep working, but
Sure.
Why do it bad? Why do it But on the other hand, those people want to keep working on their
course,
act, and
yeah.
it is a little brutal getting back into it.
Of course.
But yeah, hoping for the best.
What about next weekend?
Next weekend, I'm off. It's been pretty tough to get work.
Really?
There's
Okay.
just not many dates. I mean, I'm seeing Bryant and Regan, like huge comedians that are theater acts that are so funny and so successful, being like, yeah, I'll take work at this comedy club that's going to
Wow.
sell way less tickets than I'm used to because they want to work, and I don't think the theaters can open.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like it's not just a career for you. It's a source of great joy. It's like a buzz. It's validation. You get off that stage and you made a room full of people laugh. You can, with a sincere face, pat yourself on the back and be like, "Hey, I did something nice today. I made people laugh." That's not a minor thing.
Thanks. And there's a lot of people in that boat in every facet of life that like can't go about their business, and it's like we're trading one thing for another, and it's not for me to say if it's right or wrong. I don't know. We'll be arguing about this 100 years from now, whether or not this lockdown was a good idea. But there's
If we
definitely
go back in time and kill Baby de Blasio, I would kind of like in the sun add Baby Cuomo.
Yeah, there was a time machine article the other day, time travel article.
Okay.
Some physicist said that it's theoretically possible, and someone saying you could go back and find patient 0 of coronavirus, and it's like, but then again, you get into that whole thing where it's like, are you accidentally making things worse, or maybe this will lead to good? There's that old, I don't know. Am I going over time? Are we?
It's my show to work.
Okay.
There's no light, Joe.
I think it's Eastern philosophy. It's like the military comes to conscript someone's son, or no, he breaks his leg, and they're like, oh no, this is a tragedy. And then the military comes to conscript the son, and he can't go because of his broken leg.
Yeah.
So it ends up becoming a good thing. So maybe there are benefits that we're just not seeing yet.
All I'm hearing is that you think it's a good thing that old people are dying.
No.
That's what I'm hearing. Joe Machi says that'll be the headline.
And that's all.
Now we are out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Just getting back and doing it. I always love, as you know, I struggle with a lot of nerves. And usually it's not as bad as, I hope I didn't harp on it too much, but I worry so much about people liking me or disliking me for real reasons. And there's plenty of good reasons to dislike me, but I worry so much that I'm going to do something that without even meaning to or having it misinterpreted. And every time I get to the end of the podcast, I'm like, oh, I don't think that was that bad. So it's good for me to get out and do it. It's good to do the things you're somewhat afraid of, because that makes the next one easier.
You are welcome.